Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Bad news for XRP holders out there. It turns out there may be some monsters and gremlins still somehow employed over at the SEC. Now, I didn't actually think that all of them were gone, but of course, because of the change in administration, clearly from the top on down, we've got, things have changed, obviously. You got Paul Atkinson as the new SEC chair, replacing former Supreme Leader and dictator over at the SEC, Kim Jong-Gensler. So obviously heading in the right direction, but we still have a few people that could be described as, sticks in the mud, so to speak, resulting in the headline here, which is not ideal. Here it is from CoinDesk. SEC halts grayscale large cap fund conversion for review a day after staff approval. All right, and so yesterday, and I'll get you caught up to speed in a second, but there was approval from the SEC for a conversion of a fund which included XRP, and the conversion would change it from a trust to an actual ETF, meaning that anybody that would buy the fund would result in the company that issues the fund actually purchasing XRP. That's fantastic. That's what we want. That part would be the same as if it were just a spot XRP ETF. It's just that it's a multi-coin fund instead. So they approved it yesterday, and now it's halted the next day. How about that? I'll explain. And by the way, this is happening at the same time that allegedly, and I do think this is likely the case here, the SEC is trying to expedite approval of cryptocurrency ETFs. So here's another headline. At the same time this is happening, I know they sound conflicting, but I think that there may just be a couple bad apples still out there. But anyway, here's the headline. U.S. regulator considers simplified path to market for crypto ETFs. So they're slowing down a crypto ETF multi-coin fund, but they also want to speed up approval of crypto ETFs. Sounds a little mutually exclusive. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so here's the headline from yesterday, which unfortunately I haven't even got to talk about yet because I have been sick and it has substantially limited my output, including yesterday. I put out one video. There's no way I could keep up with everything. But this is a big deal because the approval of this yesterday, to be clear, it's a multi-coin fund getting converted into an actual ETF. This would be the first instance in the United States where XRP would be purchased because customers of, in this case, Grayscale, would be purchasing an ETF. So customers purchase ETF, and for the first time in history, it is an ETF, an actual spot ETF, and XRP then gets purchased. First time in history. That's what this would be here, even though it's a multi-coin fund. So it's a big deal here. And again, this news broke yesterday. It reads as follows. Asset manager Grayscale received approval from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on Tuesday to convert its its digital large cap fund into an exchange traded fund, ETF. The fund consists of the 5 biggest cryptocurrencies by market capitalization featured in the CoinDesk 5 index. Roughly 80.2% of the weighted fund is Bitcoin, followed by Ether at 11.3%, while Solana accounts for approximately 2.7% of the fund. XRP commands over 4.8% of the fund, and Cardano has a weighting of 0.81% in the fund. Okay, now that should not be surprising, even if you're like me and you recognize that XRP is in every way imaginable superior to Bitcoin. What they're actually going to do here is look at not just market demand. That's not the, there'll be multiple considerations. Market demand, that's, you can kind of get a sense of that based on market cap, and market cap, that's a primary driver of what they're doing here. What they're measuring here. They'll take a look at that, and then they'll decide how they're going to weight things in terms of investment based on rank order, effectively. And so that's why, you look at Bitcoin, 80.2%, XRP only 4.8%. Folks, don't forget that it wasn't long ago that XRP wasn't even in this because it was under attack from the United States government. And I can't remember exactly when at this point because everything blurs together as the days pass and months pass. But I remember recording a video getting the news that XRP was in the, it had been added to this Grayscale digital large cap fund. And I was like, guys, you know what's coming next. It's going to be turned into an ETF. And here we are. We have reached that point. Of course we have. So it's very cool stuff here. Now, Nate Garachi, he was celebrating this. Nate Garachi, he is the president of the ETF store. And he wrote the following, biggest news from today, in my opinion. XRP will now be accessible to everyday investors via Grayscale Digital Large Cap ETF. After nearly 5 years of SEC versus Ripple litigation. And now anyone will be able to easily access XRP, an SEC-regulated investment vehicle. For full circle moment. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, a lot of you have been here at least as long as me, or even if you haven't been, for a number of years. So you went through a lot of the nonsense for the last half a decade. Isn't it just crazy to see this, though? Anytime there's a success moment like this, I keep thinking back to what we've been through, and I'm just like, oh my God, we were right and we made it. We were right and we made it. We risked a lot by continuing to hold XRP, because what if we were wrong and something disastrous happened in the United States? I mean, obviously, XRP ledger decentralized, it would go on, but what if we were bastardized and screwed in the United States here? I mean, like, that could have happened. But it didn't. So here we are. And it's just just wild to see the government embracing this now, and XRP is an actual part of this. And Nate Garachi obviously gets the degree to which this is rather significant here. But isn't it something, from being being nothing but attacked to being effectively front and center at this point? It's just amazing. And then a separate post he wrote in part, see where all this is heading? Individual spot XRP, and he named some other coins also. And that is coming next, obviously. And the odds of that, pretty high. Here's another headline from Cointelegraph the other day. Analysts raise chance of Solana XRP and Litecoin ETF approval to 95%. Analysts covering the crypto exchange-traded fund space have tipped a 95% chance for Solana, Litecoin, and XRP ETFs to be approved by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Bloomberg's ETF specialists Eric Balkunas and James Seifert increased their odds for several altcoin spot exchange-traded funds in an X post on Monday. We expect a wave of new ETFs in the second half of 2025, said Seifert. So they still believe this is coming, and they, as you can see on the screen right here, for XRP, they put the odds of approval in 2025 literally at 95%. So then what's going on here? If that's the case, why are we seeing a slowdown? And I know that this isn't just XRP that's impacted, but it is impacting XRP. And so the headline here again, SEC halts Grayscale large cap fund conversion for review a day after staff approval. And so I think it comes back down to one or two bad apples, and we can guess who they are, frankly. So let's jump in. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's leaders are reviewing the agency's recent approval of a Grayscale effort to convert a fund into an exchange-traded fund, a letter dated July 1st said. The SEC allowed Grayscale to uplist the Digital Large Cap Fund, GDLC, which holds $755 million in Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, Solana, and Cardano, into an ETF through delegated authority, meaning the SEC's commissioners did not vote to approve the conversion, but rather agency staff gave the sign-off. And so, folks, there's the key distinction. Agency staff that had the power gave the sign-off, and they did that within the confines of the power that they had, and so that's all well and good. But then at least one, it looks like this is the assumption based on what I'm seeing here, at least one commissioner swooped in and was like, nope, we're going to give you trouble. And so, it would just be one of the two Democrats who consistently voted anti-crypto for the last several years under the Biden administration. It's going to be them. It's one or both of them. And so anyway, here you go. This letter is to notify you that pursuant to Rule 431 of the Commission's Rule of Practice 17, blah, 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 the Commission will review the delegated action. The letter addressed to the New York Stock Exchange said, in accordance with Rule blah, 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 the July 1st, 2025 order is stayed until the Commission orders otherwise, end quote. So now we're in a holding pattern. We are waiting because somebody decided they have a problem with it. Look, the SEC said it would let the New York Stock Exchange know, quote, of any pertinent action taken by the Commission, end quote. This is just ridiculous. Get them the hell out of here. If you're just going to try and destroy an industry, just get the hell out of here. You're just wrecking people's lives. Bunch of asshat pricks. Any commissioner can ask that an SEC action be reviewed. In the past, commissioners have asked to review ETF disapprovals, for example. The letter did not indicate which commissioner or commissioners asked for the review. Take a guess, folks. Hold on, I got a cough here. Sorry, many of you may know that I'm a bit sick right now, so forgive me here. I leaned away from the mic, all right? I leaned away from the mic, so I'll give you some credit. Subscribe because I leaned away from the mic. Although if this does get bad, I'm going to have to cut this short. I'm really close to the end of this video anyway. There's only one more point I wanted to make here. So I think it is just, like I said, a couple bad apples here, one or two, that caused this anyway. There may be more bad apples at the SEC, of course. That wouldn't surprise me. But even though that's true, they're not going to be able to stop the trajectory, which is now pro-crypto. You'd have to have an anti-crypto administration get into power and then destroy everything. And once the crypto empire has been well built, it's going to be hard. Then you're going to have people with vested interests here and there, including people in high places. It's going to be effectively impossible to destruct at that point. So the fact that what's being built is going to be built over the next few years, even if you get some anti-crypto regime in charge, which is possible, you actually could do that. Good luck taking it down. You're gonna try, but you're gonna have a lot more trouble than you did even several years ago. I'm just telling you right now. But there are all sorts of people that are trying to speed the process up here. And so there's this headline also: U.S. regulator considers simplified path to market for crypto ETFs. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission is reportedly exploring a simplified listing structure for crypto exchange-traded funds that would automate a significant portion of the approval process. Under the proposed overhaul, ETF issuers could potentially sidestep 19B-4 application filings the form entities submit to the SEC before listing a financial product on exchanges, according to crypto journalist Eleanor Terrett. Instead, issuers would submit SEC Form S-1, the initial listing registration filing, and wait for 75 days. If the SEC does not object to the application, the issuer would be free to list the ETF, reducing the back and forth communication between fund managers and the regulators. So, folks, if that comes to pass, and it still has to be made publicly known and actually implemented, that would be them actually making things easier. That would be an actual reduction in friction to get more crypto ETFs just approved. That's it. That is bottom line what that means. So hopefully that does ultimately come to pass. I'm all for reducing the friction here. And if they want to jump in, they've got the power to jump in if they want to say no. But don't bog this down with a bunch of stupid-ass paperwork that nobody wants or needs. Duh. So anyway, I will just say this. Ultimately, despite this whole, I don't know how long this thing's going to go, and I'll keep you guys apprised of what's going on as news drips in. I don't think that this is something that's, I just don't think this is something that's going to result in this getting blocked ultimately. I just don't think that there's the power structure in place to do that at this point. I just don't think there is. I don't think they have the votes for that, even commissioner-wise. It's just not, it's going to get through. It's just a slowdown, and I don't know how long it's going to take, whether it's days, weeks, or a month or two, or who knows. As soon as I know, I'll be happy to share. I just haven't seen any information on that. But you can't stop this. So I think you have a couple idiot commissioners out there who are ideologically driven, who hate crypto because they're idiot sticks, and they're slowing it down. That's my guess. That's my speculation. And they're going to lose. That's what's going to happen. They're going to lose. We win. That is that in the end. And not only will this thing ultimately be active, there will ultimately be an spot XRP ETF that's approved. Mark my words on that. And I will not be surprised if it's this year. Not be surprised in the least. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.